Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of The Spirit of Creating. And today I wanted to talk about the idea of using nature as our creative mentor, because nature has a whole cycle of the creative process which works beautifully and without fail produces exactly what's required at exactly the right time, not a minute less and not a minute more. And it allows for everything to occur. So a seed is planted, it's allowed the time to grow, it's fed what it needs to be fed, it blossoms, it blooms, and nature allows for all that abundance. And then it allows for the decay of that bloom. It allows for the leaves to fall away. It allows for the landscape to be totally barren. And it looks like it's devoid of life, like nothing's happening. And in that time, it still trusts itself. It doesn't jump in there and say, oh, I can't believe all the leaves have fallen off. There's nothing to show. Nature looks terrible right now. Oh, I don't like this landscape. I need it to rush into spring again. Why is the clouds so dark? Why is there so much rain? There's nothing. There's just an allowance of it all and a trust in the process. And as time passes, those seeds are planted yet again, and they bloom and they blossom and they decay, and that whole cycle repeats itself. And the reason we as creatives would do well to follow that process and to allow for that is because the creative cycle is like that. And we can be quite in need of instantaneous results. So we might create something and we want to know that it's welcomed into the world, that it's seen how we would like it to be seen. We want instantaneous results. If we're selling a piece, we want it to sell as quickly as possible. And we don't allow for the cyclical process of creativity. If we're in a process where that time span, we're not creating much and we're not having many ideas, and we feel like we're in a creative block. We're not in a creative block. We're just in a season where ideas are seeds and they're percolating, and we're not giving them space to grow because we're rushing it. We're like, we should always have these ideas. We should always be creating. We should always be producing. But maybe our creative process is also seasonal. So maybe we go through periods of time where we have lots of ideas and we execute on all of them and we see them grow and we see them received into the world and we love what we produce. And then it might get quite quiet. And now the ideas don't seem to come in so thick and fast. Or what we're creating isn't what we want to create. It doesn't look like how we thought it might look, or it doesn't feel like how we thought it might feel. And we can completely fall out of trust with ourselves and the process. So then we can start doubting. We can start judging our work. We can start judging our process. We can start judging timing, because we are thinking beings, so we can create these limits and boundaries around what we create ourselves. And we can say, well, I think I created this piece of art in August. I feel like it should be finished by September. It's not complete. Why isn't it complete? Why haven't I got the, I don't know, motivation to follow through? Why hasn't it been received? Whatever the reasons are, there's multiple reasons we can have. But there's just a lack of trust in the process. So when it comes to our creativity, it would be a great idea to look into nature and say, I've had a real abundant spell currently. And right now, I feel like something's percolating, something's churning, but it's not coming up just yet. And that's okay. I trust the process. I trust myself. I trust that I will keep creating, and something will come about when the time is right. And that could be seasonal. And if you play with your creativity in this way, you might even see that actually on a monthly, weekly, yearly basis, you do have a creative season and cycle to your work, just like nature does. And you might see that after a big bout of creativity, you might feel quite tired creatively, and you might want to just rest and look at inspiration and ideas and play around, but not create anything concrete. And that's part of the process. So it's almost like stepping back, allowing the creative journey to manifest in the ways it wants to, but not jump in there and put a timetable, a schedule, and a deadline on it and expect it to be like a factory line of just churning out art with no allowance for the natural process. nature doesn't just churn out blossoms and blooms. It takes its time, and it allows for the whole cycle of creation and destruction to take place. And maybe we as artists need to allow for that process too. So that's just something to think about when you're taking part in the creative journey, and maybe not holding yourself so accountable to timetables and rigid structures that are just man-made and mental constructions, and maybe taking some time to associate our artistic processes with the same processes we find in nature. So if you have any questions or would like any topics to be covered in any future episodes, you can let me know at illustratingbrain@gmail.com, and I'll see you again next week.